If you've ever used the background gradient options on a container in GenerateBlocks, you'll find that on mobile, you don't have the option to alter that gradient in any way. So today I'm going to show you how to write a little bit of CSS so that you can change that gradient how you'd like for mobile. Alright, so as you can see here on my hero section, I've got a real light gradient overlay on top of the background image. It's like a blue to a dark gray. And when I view this on mobile, I'll jump into the customizer and show you on mobile. The gradient carries over the same exact settings as it does on the desktop version. And I don't really love the way the gradient looks. But I don't want to get rid of the gradient, and GenerateBlocks doesn't allow me to edit that within the mobile setting. So I'm going to show you how we can edit that by jumping into the page here, coming into the backend editor, and first I'll just show you just so you understand what I'm talking about. So if you come down, select that container that has your gradient, and then you come down to your color settings, backgrounds, excuse me. If you come under backgrounds, you'll see use gradient is checked. And underneath that, I've got my color number 1, color number 2, and color number 2 is set to stop at 60%. So what I want to do is be able to change this on mobile, but when I come onto the mobile settings and scroll on down, the background panel is no longer visible. So what we want to do then is first jump back into the desktop version real quick and come to the advanced tab here on the bottom right, and we're going to give this container a class name so that we can call to it. So we'll say hero gradient mobile. So this is what we're going to use in order to write that CSS and change it on mobile. So hit update, and now refresh our page, and I'm going to show you how to find that gradient code within Inspector in Chrome so that we can just pull that code right into our editor. So open up your inspector, and if we come to the container here that's highlighted and selected, open that container, and the gradient is actually part of the after class because it's on top, technically on top of that background. So if you click on the after, you'll find it right here, background image, and it shows linear gradient, 134 degrees, and then it shows the blue color, RGBA, and the gray color, and you see it here at the end, stopped 60%. So what we can do is go ahead and just copy this full code, and now jump back into our customizer. I'm going to hit refresh just so that it reflects the CSS class that we put in there, and then jump into our CSS editor, make some room for us, and I'm first just going to paste in the background gradient code just so I don't lose it in my clipboard. So what we need to do is write a media query. So I've got a text expander snippet that I've got to put in the initial code. So I got to .c media, and now this needs to go within those brackets, of course. But first we need to write a max width. So since this is mobile, I'm going to say max width of 768. I believe that should do it. And then we need to insert our class. So we say hero gradient mobile. Now insert another bracket and closing bracket. So because we set that code to media only screen and max width of 768 pixels, it means any screen that's 768 pixels or smaller is going to be affected by this code. Alright, so we've got our hero gradient mobile, and we've got our background image gradient code in place. However, we're forgetting one key element here. Remember, in order to tackle that gradient, we need to add the after pseudo here. So we do semicolon after. All right, so now that that's in place, let's go ahead and hit enter here, get on the next line. We can test and take a look at our gradient and adjust it how we need. So the RGBA is red, green, blue, and then A is for the transparency. So this is set to 0.93 opacity. So if I get rid of the 0.9, we'll see now it's to 0.3, and you saw the blue totally went away because 0.3 is much more opaque than 0.93. So I still want that to be 0.93. I don't want it to be more see-through. And then you see here at the end is the 60%. That's that stopping point that I had inserted on GenerateBlocks. And so that's mostly what I would like to change on mobile. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that out. And now you see at 0%, the gray is totally taking over the gradient. But I'm going to say 90%. Or actually, let's go 85. Oops. All right, so that helps now because the blue is taking over 85% of our gradient, and the gray is just still a small corner on the edge. And so when we look back at our desktop version, the gray is not quite half, right? We've set that at 60%, so a little less. And on mobile, again, it's just a nicer effect, so it doesn't take over the whole thing. We can also, because of the text, we can bump up the opacity of the gray to say 93 as well to match the blue. And again, if on mobile your text isn't as readable with the gradient, you can always bump up the opacity, right? So you can go 0.96, and now it's going to be much less opaque, more solid of a color. So by doing this, adding your class to the container, pulling in the after pseudo, and then grabbing that gradient code directly from your inspector, you can just tweak this however you need on mobile and ensure that your desktop settings and how you want that to look, the gradient to look on desktop, won't be affected. So go ahead and hit publish. And we can come to our page, hit refresh. And now if we go ahead and kind of scale our window down, we'll see that gradient suddenly change once it reaches that breakpoint that we set of 768. Boom, you can see it change back there on tablet. All right, so I know that this is probably not a super widely used case to cover, but I found it really frustrating when I was designing different sections on a various client sites that I couldn't really control that gradient on mobile. Especially sometimes if you have a blue gradient that goes to transparent. On mobile, it just really looks poor, and so I wanted that to control that better. So it covered the area that I really wanted it to for the design and as well as for readability. I'll go ahead and drop in the code below. But remember to use your class that you dictated in your container and swap out those RGB numbers that pertain to your colors. Or you can always just grab it from the inspector like I showed. Thanks for watching. See you guys next time.